Hey guys, so today we're making some apple cider pretzels. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's get started with the recipe. So these pretzels were so delicious, nice, and sweet, and it just screams fall. And so I got this recipe from a website called rabbitandwolves.com. I'll be sure to list that in the description box below. But I'm going to start with some warm apple cider. It's about 1.5 cups of apple cider that's been warmed to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I'm going to add in 1 packet of active dry yeast. And I'm going to let that bloom for about 5 minutes. And then after that, I am going to add in 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, as well as 1 tablespoon of coconut oil that I melted. And then I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just going to mix all of that together. And so this is actually my first time making pretzels, so I was a little bit nervous, but it actually wasn't terrible. It actually turned out pretty good. And so here I have some all-purpose flour. This is about 3 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. I did measure it out in grams, and I'll be sure to put that in the description box below, but the recipe lists it in just regular cups. And so you want to gradually add in your flour, because you don't want to add in too much at a time, and then it turns out that you don't actually need that much. But I'm just gonna knead this using my KitchenAid mixer, or you can do this by hand if you like. And make sure that you scrape the bowl down every so often, or ever so often. And so next I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of some ground cinnamon. And then I'm just going to continue to mix the dough until it forms a nice ball, and it should come off the sides of the bowl just like this, really easily. And then I'm just going to remove it from the bowl and place it in a different bowl and cover it with some plastic wrap. And you want to let the dough sit for about 10 minutes so it can puff up a little bit. And I like to put my bowl on top of a cutting board so it's not sitting on my cold counter. And so while the dough is rising, I am going to make the icing for the pretzels, and this is totally optional. I feel like it really didn't need it because the pretzels are sweet on its own with the cinnamon sugar. But if you're making the icing, you're going to use 1 cup of powdered sugar, a tablespoon of some maple syrup, 1 to 2 tablespoons of some apple cider. And this is apple cider, not apple cider vinegar. You're using actual apple cider, and a pinch of salt. And then I'm just going to mix that until it reaches my desired consistency. And so you want it to be able to it's kind of in between like a thick and a thin. You want it to be able to drizzle, but you don't want it to be too thick where it's like frosting, or too watery where it's just gonna run off the pretzel, if that makes any sense. And so now that my dough is done resting, I am gonna flour a clean surface, and I'm gonna cut my dough into 8 pieces, and you want to try to get them as equal as possible. I did measure out 8 pieces using my kitchen scale, but you can kind of eyeball it if you want to. And so this is the part where I struggled quite a bit. And again, I have never made pretzels before in my life, and so I think I did a pretty good job. But you're gonna roll this out into like a 20-inch rope, and then you're going to create a U shape, and then you're going to kind of cross it over and tuck it under. And I did the best I could. So some of them look better than others. I think I got better as time went on. And so next I have some water that's been boiling, and I am going to add in a 1/2 cup of baking soda. And then you're going to boil maybe 1 to 2 pretzels at a time, and you only want to boil it for 30 to 60 seconds. And then you're going to remove it from the water and put it onto a lined baking sheet, and you're going to line it with some parchment paper, or if you have a silicone mat, you can use that as well. But I'm going to continue this process for all 8 of my pretzels. And then you want to make sure that your oven is preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, because after we boil these for 30 to 60 seconds, we're going to bake them in the 400 degree Fahrenheit oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. And I did bake mine closer to like the 15-minute mark. So while the pretzels are in the oven, I am going to mix together the cinnamon sugar. And so very simple here. It's just 1 cup of some sugar, 2 teaspoons of some ground cinnamon, and then I'm going to add in 1/4 of a cup of some melted butter. I am using plant butter for this recipe because it's actually a vegan recipe, but you could also just use regular butter if that's what you have. And so now that the pretzels are out of the oven, I'm going to brush each of them with some butter, because this is going to help our cinnamon sugar mixture to stick to the pretzels. And so after I've buttered the pretzels, I'm just going to toss them in the cinnamon sugar mixture. And I'm going to repeat that for each of the pretzels. And then I just transferred it to a wire rack. But this was actually fairly simple. Again, I've never made pretzels before, and I think they turned out fantastic. And I really don't think it needs the icing, but I am going to ice a few of them. But I think it made it a little bit too sweet because the cinnamon sugar was sweet enough. But this is the finished product, perfect for fall. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. These pretzels were absolutely delicious. And again, the icing is optional, but if you have a sweet tooth, I think you would definitely enjoy it. And my kids definitely like tore these things up. Nice and soft. It kind of reminded me of Auntie Anne's pretzels in the mall. But of course, a lot cheaper because you made it at home. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll put all of the information in the description box below so that you can make this on your own. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.